I'm Wendy Gillette with Small Cap Nation. We are joined today by the CEO of Hemispherx Biopharma, Tom Equels, and analyst John Persinos, who is with TheStreet and Investing Daily. Thanks very much for being with us.
Well, thank you, Wendy.
So you have a drug to treat chronic fatigue syndrome. Tell me what the status is of the drug right now.
Okay. Our drug Ampligen, it's an experimental drug in the United States under clinical development. It has recently been approved for use as a therapy in Argentina for chronic fatigue syndrome, which we now call ME/CFS. ME relates to the European name, and we've combined them together. Ampligen is the only drug that's a therapeutic that's in the pipeline anywhere in the world. The Argentina approval was the first approval ever that we're aware of for a therapy that actually remediates and brings this disease into remission in severe cases of the disease. And we're pushing as hard as we can to get approval in the United States. And we've expanded our activities in Europe utilizing early access programs, which are a part of the European regulatory system, to allow for the drug to be used in Europe by severe CFS patients who have a need and whose doctors and governments will work out reimbursement programs for purposes of acquiring the drug.
And what do you think the timeline is with the FDA?
Well, we're trying to move as quickly as possible with the FDA. We've had a great deal of congressional support for approval of Ampligen based upon the fact that the people with the severe form of ME/CFS have gone from highly productive lives. These are high energy, accomplished people that are felled in the prime of life and become completely bedridden. In some instances, they can't even get under their own power to go to the bathroom. And so they become subject to requiring social costs related to their disability and a great deal of medical costs for treatment of the symptoms related to the problem. Now, you know, we are hoping that that support that we've had in Congress, especially with the new administration, will allow us to move forward with the FDA to bring this therapy, which was just approved in Argentina, to the people who need it. Because there are people who desperately need a therapy. This is an unmet medical need. And we've been trying our hardest to bring this to those people in a meaningful way so that they can get out of bed and get back to living their lives. And there are numerous examples of how that's happened. The FDA, remarkably, allows us to operate clinics in an open label program. So there's a clinic in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. There's a clinic in North Carolina where severe CFS sufferers are able to get Ampligen. And the people who are in those open label programs have been able to turn their life around in many instances and go from being completely disabled to back to work.
Yeah, and that's a major...
That makes a big difference, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. Not to mention the fact that with approval, we go from having 40 jobs at our facility in New Brunswick to 400 or maybe even 1,000 jobs. And these are high-paying, meaningful jobs for the United States.
John, I know you have a couple questions.
Sure, of course. One thing, your company has a market cap of between $19 and $20 million. One of the notorious problems for small cap biotechs is that they burn through a lot of cash quickly. They usually very often don't have the financial wherewithal to hang in there for the long haul. Developing drugs is very expensive.
It is very difficult, I confess.
Yeah. You know? Getting through the FDA gauntlet can take billions of dollars and many, many years. So it begs the question, what are your continued sources of financing? Where do you stand with the VC community? And in are there any partnerships you're forging with big pharma?
Well, we have a parallel track that we're working on. As you say, you know, the burn rate doing research and development and clinical activities is very high. And there's no way to avoid that if you want to proceed toward approvals in any market. Argentina, where we just got this first approval worldwide, the work we're doing in Europe, but most significantly the work in the United States. It's very expensive. So as we move forward with that, we have to, you know, continue to fund our operations. Now, we have different mechanisms that are available for funding the operations. You know, the traditional financing mechanisms, of course, could be, you know, utilized. And in fact, we raised a few months ago $5 million with two major health investment funds, sophisticated healthcare investment funds, both of which took, I believe, in excess of a 5% stake in the company.
Okay.
Now, that allows us to continue what we're doing. But our primary objective is to focus, if possible, on finding co-development partners.
Right.
And we've developed a licensing strategy that I think is going to be very important in terms of funding. So, in the United States, of course, if we could find a co-development partner for ME/CFS and recognizing how big that market is, at some point I think the light bulb is going to go on at Pfizer or Merck or Bristol Myers, because you're talking about hundreds of thousands of severe cases, totally disabled people, right? You're talking about a therapy that costs about $90,000 over a 9-month period, so you do the math,
Well, that raises another question. It's a major unmet need.
It is.
So tell me where you stand with, you must be applying for orphan drug status.
We already have orphan drug status in the United States for this disease, which gives us 7 years of exclusivity.
Yeah, so that is a major tailwind for the product and for your company.
One hopes.
Because it really accelerates the marketing and development aspects of the drug, removes a lot of hurdles. What about in Europe?
Now, in Europe, we don't we have orphan drug status for Ampligen in other areas. Ampligen is a platform drug. ME/CFS is just one of the components. Because Ampligen operates as a TLR3 agonist, which is essentially, it's a key to turning on the innate and adaptive immune systems in a very meaningful way. Ampligen has a multitude of uses. So it's not just ME/CFS as a single therapy, it also has significant demonstrated uses in oncology and in immuno-oncology as a standalone therapy, as well as in combination with drugs like checkpoint inhibitors.
Well, immuno-oncology is in the vanguard of drug development right now.
Exactly.
Getting the body to use its own defenses against invading cancer cells, etc. The age-old dream of letting your body be your own physician. So there's been a big explosion in immunological research and development. So I'd imagine that some of the big pharma players that are pursuing immuno-oncology as well would be interested in your efforts in that regard.
We are doing our best to get the information regarding our TLR3 agonist and how it works in conjunction with a variety of different cancers where we have experimental and clinical data.
Right.
And we also, in the United States, have orphan drug status for Ampligen in renal cell and melanoma that we were able to obtain from the FDA. So we're getting that out to the big players in the United States. But we also have a foreign strategy that I've implemented. Now, and this is a little bit complicated, but if you'd like to hear about it,
of course I would. Yeah.
In order to get the approval in Argentina, Argentina, their FDA, which is called ANMAT, is one of the regional regulators of influence for Latin America. It's a very highly respected governing body in Latin America. And they utilize a digital package of the clinical data and the safety data. So we have this recent approval from Argentina. We have a new drug application, which is basically a $20+ million investment in clinical work and probably a 3 to 4 year time period if somebody were to want to replicate that. So my idea is we go out into other markets that we probably wouldn't be able in the near term to develop anyway.
As a springboard into
Use
Latin
it as
America.
a springboard. Well, we're already using it as a springboard into Latin America with our partner in Latin America, which is a Spanish company, GP Pharm.
Right, increasing your global footprint.
Exactly, and there's a lot of money available globally for the right deal.
Right. You just anticipated my next question. The biotech sector has been rallying in recent weeks. One reason is that investors are looking at this big cash hoard that's been sitting overseas, and they're anticipating that the drug companies will repatriate that money to this country, and it will fuel merger and acquisition activity. So one of a classic strategy of a smaller company like yours is to eventually get bought out. I mean, is that part of your long-term strategy, or at the very least it could raise your stock price as people anticipate that scenario?
Well, I perceive my job is to try to create shareholder value. So, if obviously we can put together a deal that's good for our stockholders, I'm enthusiastic about that.
Yes.
I happen to be one of the larger stockholders too, so.
I can see why you would be enthusiastic.
Imagine that. What about some headwinds? What are some, I know you probably don't want to talk about them, but what are some potential competitors or hurdles that you could face in the coming months and years?
Well, we consider ourselves the new Hemispherx. We've had a change of management, a change of attitude, where we've focused on getting things done. In the last 8 or 9 months that I've been CEO, we've had probably a dozen accomplishments, and a half a dozen of them major accomplishments. For example, the approval in Argentina. We had to initiate 2 or 3 things before we could get to that approval, but we identified that as a priority, and we began to execute, very aggressively to move towards that goal, and we accomplished it. So, our past is something of a burden that we have to deal with, but people have to understand, I can't change the past. I can only create a future, and do my best to bring value to this company and bring this product to the people who need this product, because this is a very, very important therapeutic. We talked about MECFS and the spectacular results that I've seen have made me a true believer about how important Ampligen is for that disease. We have a platform drug here that will work in MECFS, as demonstrated in Argentina. It has tremendous potential in immuno-oncology for a number of different cancers and cancer products that could work in combination with. And finally, as an antiviral, we're just scratching the surface of what it might be able to do. We are going to work very hard to do our best, for the people who need this drug, as well as for our stockholders, to make a difference in this world.
All right, well, we wish you a lot of luck in your endeavors, and we hope you'll come back to talk about them, okay?
That would be my pleasure.
All right, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm Wendy Gillette with Small Cap Nation.